Exploring the lived experiences of primary caregivers of children with visual impairment from low and middle income contexts in the Western Cape province. Visual impairment and disability is a complex situation. It involves features of the individual's body and features of society. Some factors that influence the experience of visual impairment are severity of the impairment, age of onset, culture, ethnicity, religion, rural or urban location, and income status. It is important to understand the experiences of families of children with visual impairment so that interventions can be tailored to suit their needs and shortcomings. Children with visual impairment are vulnerable during their developmental stages. The lack of sight has an impact on the primary socialization and interaction for these children and their primary caregiver. Mothers who are in most cases the primary caregiver need professional, formal and informal support to nurture and facilitate the development of children diagnosed with visual impairment. The main responsibility to care often rests on these families, and the effect of this in low and middle income contexts is complex and poorly understood. Services and support for such families are difficult to access or in some cases are non-existent. Three main issues are highlighted here: the vulnerability of children with visual impairment in early childhood, insufficient information about their condition, and the burden put on parents and caregivers to raise children with visual impairment in the absence of support services. The findings of the study illustrated four themes. First, the experiences of primary caregivers of a child with visual impairment after diagnosis. Express needs. Third, services and supports received. Fourth, changes and concerns for the future. What follows are some extracts from these themes. Psychosocial aspects are highlighted that impact the lives of families when a child is diagnosed with visual impairment. Psychosocial refers to the interrelationship of the psychological aspect of the person and the social environment of his life. Psychosocial responses of caregivers thus refer to the emotions, thoughts and spiritual sensations which were evoked for these primary caregivers as they experienced the diagnosis and life after of the child with visual impairment. Three aspects were noted. 1. The responses of primary caregivers to the diagnosis. 2. The responses of the household. 3. The responses from society at the participation of the family. Firstly, primary caregivers awaited the birth of the ideal child with hopes for fine growth, socialization, and plans for the future. The reality of visual impairment was met with dismay. Parents with family genes of visual impairment had uncertain expectations during and after the birth. Secondly, after receiving the diagnosis, primary caregivers experience a turmoil of emotions. Shock and grief. They thought it was a punishment. They blamed themselves, questioned why visual impairment happened to their child, took it to be their burden for life, felt sorry for their child, and anticipated psychosocial challenges from society. Thirdly, primary caregivers responded with trauma and grief. Managing with little children who live with visual impairment brought along stressful moments. They experienced states of grief, denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. Fourth, in providing for the child's needs, the severity of the disability had an impact on the caregiving task. This heightened the level of the child's dependency. Children also had delayed development which demanded lots of responsibility and caused physical tiredness. This was time consuming. Financial responsibilities added to the family burden. Fifth, with the addition of the new member with visual impairment to the household, either one of the spouses or an aunt assumed the role of primary caregiver. Parenting was shared by some. One father showed no interest and another lacked understanding of how to help. Another one was not cooperative. Siblings, some of them spent quality time, showed empathy and understanding. When young siblings did not understand the visual impairment phenomenon, primary caregivers explained it to them. One participant who also lives with visual impairment wished that the older children could have patience and understanding with their sister. Primary caregivers were also mindful to divide attention between other siblings. 6. The impact of visual impairment on family dynamics showed that some household members struggled to adapt to the visual impairment phenomenon. They responded with conflict when household members did not know how to help or assist with the child with visual impairment. They became agitated. For other families, the addition of the child with visual impairment brought a sense of togetherness in the family house. 7th, participation in community brought responses from society that were about stigma, peer mocking, labeling from the community, stereotypes and myths that were offensive. Ignorance and exclusion from family, community and in the workplace, negative cultural beliefs and dealing with staring faces in public were other social responses. Primary caregivers wanted to avoid infantilization by others treating their child as hopeless or an invalid. Expressed needs from Theme 2. At the social circles close to the family house, the need for other familial support was recognized. An important need was for strong support structures, emotional support, just someone to turn to and vent themselves, and the need to be encouraged. Participants wanted guidance on how to care and manage. Family and community needed to be advocated to understand disability. Furthermore, social environments shape the development of the individual. Where operations and interactions happen relating to individuals' well-being and livelihood, needs were identified in respect of information services, professional services, and accessible transport, workplace accommodation, safe and secure settings, financial services, socialization and recreational services, and advocacy or other express needs. The 4th level of social organization are where overarching ideologies exist that influence the growth and development of the individual. This platform includes cultural ideologies, ethnicity and religion, governmental entities, legal policies, and political ideologies. There was also services at education and special care service centers that were in need. Rehabilitation and assistive devices were mentioned. And the last 2 categories concerned legal policies and their implementation, and issues with social security grants. Recommendations for changes are firstly, emotional support structures should be the first pillar of support after the diagnosis. In terms of this, the ophthalmologist must be conscious of the traumatic effect of the diagnosis for the family. They should have a psychologist or social worker ready to send the family to immediately after the diagnosis. There should also be clear information on the diagnosis, sufficient information to understand the new reality, information on how to care and self-care, effective communication of this information, a thorough network for referrals with interdisciplinary teams that can provide necessary leads to resources. There should be help with legal applications from a help desk. There should also be provision for rehabilitation and guidance on how to care. Secondly, municipality and local governmental departments can form intersectoral collaboration to accommodate, promote social inclusion and participation for primary caregivers and families of a child with visual impairment. The first area here is accessible transport and schools. One participant wanted to send his child to a special school. His child has cerebral palsy and multiple other comorbidities with visual impairment. He needed a school that catered for all his child's needs in respect of accessible and safe transport, affordable transport, a school close by home, a school with staff that are specialized and professionally skilled in respect of caring, stimulating, and empowering the child to independence. Another participant wanted to send her child to a mainstream school. She was worried about social stigmas, peer bullying and mocking, and her child being marginalized in the school area. At the special school for the blind, he was happy with a peer environment. However, the child had to travel long hours and she worried about his safety while he was on the road. In addition, school fees add to the family's financial burden. The second area to note is the need for creative and recreational facilities, accessible parks, clubs, sports and societies, communities that are sensitive to the inclusion of children with visual impairment. These are also spaces of respite, opportunities for primary caregivers where they can relax and unwind, share tips, and create general awareness on disabilities. The third area is safety and security. Primary caregivers fear the safety of their child when they leave home to send children to schools and when parents need to go work. For changes in this area, the media, internet and researchers can contribute at this broader realm to provide information on disability issues, advocate for, educate and desensitize the public on rights and social inclusion for families with visual impairment. It must be understood that individuals with visual impairment have functional limitations, but they have unique capabilities when there is adequate formal and informal support. Recommendations for changes at sectors in the broader environment of social interaction and organization are changing predominant belief systems through advocacy, awareness, and desensitization programs. Firstly, one participant mentioned that she doesn't send a child to a Muslim school. She did not know that there are Muslim schools that cater for visually impaired children to teach Braille in the Quranic language. This indicates to cultural norms and beliefs that children with visual impairment cannot learn, lack of information on resources, and parents in despair that their child cannot be educated. Extended families and communities' perceptions that the situation is helpless. Secondly, human resource departments in organizations and employers should be sensitive and flexible to the needs and responsibilities of parents in respect of time off in emergency situations. One participant was faced with a threat to lose her job if she did not meet deadlines while she needed to be out of work to take a child for hospital visits. One employer suggested sending children to an institute for the blind. Participants are expected to forfeit their leave days or go unpaid when time is taken off. Thirdly, the Department of Basic Education is mandated to provide assistive devices and education equipment for children with visual impairment. White canes for mobility, braille typewriters, braille paper, magnifying equipment, and any other equipment in the classroom suited for the needs of the child with a visual impairment. Furthermore, processes to get children into special schools require proper paperwork and referrals from health professionals. Stringent application procedures are time-consuming and stressful for parents. Thirdly, healthcare inadequacies and rehabilitation must be addressed by the Department of Health. Some parents said that they found their own way to do things. The Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities stipulates that these services and support related to rehabilitation should not be only provided to obtain, but it should also be to maintain maximum independence. Thus, there should be ample referrals and monitoring after birth and the diagnosis, starting from ophthalmic services to relevant service providers. If intervention happens early, there can be long-term advantages. Conclusion. In terms of the psychosocial challenges experienced by primary caregivers of a child diagnosed with visual impairment, emotional and informational support is the most crucial need. This features in all spheres of the child's developmental needs and social environments that have an impact on their and the family's lives. Providing for the child with visual impairments needs is stressful in respect of thinking of the child's future. This is where the child's education and chances of independence comes first, because the ultimate concern of the participants were who would care for them when we are not there anymore. Support from significant others, informal and formal support from community and the broader social environment played a major role in the adaptation, coping, and acceptance of the visual impairment.